Hi guys, I hope you guys are doing well. It's been a while, obviously with good reason. I'm going through the mess. I think so. I'm not exaggerated. I've just been very busy, very tired, very unable to attend to normal things in life. I don't know the last time I just sat and did nothing, like just sleep. Without having to worry about what must happen tomorrow. So it's been hectic. However, I am trying to keep my channel running and still produce necessary and relevant content. So this particular topic was something that somebody on Instagram asked me to cover. And personally, when it comes to the legal topics, I prefer it when people ask me, to cover something, because at least then I know that, after thinking about it and giving it some thought, I know that, it's going to help more people than just that person. Sometimes I think about topics, but it doesn't really extend beyond, a certain particular individual. So today we're going to talk about obtaining a legal master's degree, whether that's relevant, whether it's necessary, and if you are a person who's interested in pursuing it, what should you do? I want to say though, I feel like this information, majority of this is available at your disposal if you just Google, but I'll try give that information that's not readily available. That which is readily available, please just Google it. Sharp. The first thing I want to clear out of the way before we even begin with this video is this notion that a master's degree might not be necessary or is not necessary and is sort of imposed by people who have a master's degree because they think what. It depends. Like, that's the fact of the matter is that it depends on your circumstances. It depends on what you want. It depends on what you want to achieve. It depends on, what you're practicing, whether you need, extra information, whatever. It depends. We cannot blanketly say a master's degree is necessary, and we cannot say blanketly that a master's degree is unnecessary. So it depends on you and your situation, and most importantly, what you want. And suppose what is important then to state then is that if you want to study a master's degree, that I think it's important to know when is the right time for you to study a master's degree, because a master's degree is a bit of a challenge. I would be lying to say it's not, especially if you are working. If you finish your LLB and you go straight into a master's program, I think the momentum you carry from your undergrad can carry you, but the fact of the matter is, regardless whether you're doing it straight after undergrad, whether you're doing it whilst you're working or at a later stage, a master's degree is not necessarily a walk in the park. And if you think it is, kudos to you for being Genius of the Year. So the first question I was asked is, what is the process of the applications? Well, this is one of those questions that you can get answers to by just Googling, or at least going on to the particular institution that you'd like to study at, and reading the information they have under their postgraduate studies, right? But to sum that up, when you consider applying for a master's degree, that particular institution would offer certain majors or certain, what do they call those things? Specializations, right? So the list of options under masters is not endless, right? There's usually, I would say, about 10 master's degrees that you could choose from, right? There are certain requirements under each LLM course that is offered at a particular institution. So it might be worthwhile to first identify which LLM course you'd like to take on, and then once you've identified it, identify the institution, obviously, that offers that LLM course. Because certain courses won't be available in one institution, but they could be available in another. And I think also I'd like to say that I encourage people to do LLM in that particular field that they'd like to, and not say I want to do it at this institution even though it doesn't offer the course that I want. Because at the end of the day, you must remember why you're doing the course. That's why I started off by saying, what is your circumstance? What is your desire? What do you want? And also, how is this going to help you, right? So once you've identified the course that you want to study, you would usually then proceed with your application. The only thing I know you need to pay for is an application fee, and application fees are not the same for all institutions, but they're usually not more than, I think, 300 Rand. Sometimes it could be free, sometimes it could be less. So you have to choose two courses that you would prefer, and the institution will either accept you for both, and then you have to choose which one you ultimately will take on, or maybe they only accept you for one, and it means that you can only study that one. So if possible, choose the LLM courses that are definitely of interest to you. In case your first choice is not given to you, you're not feeling like, I don't really want to do the second one, right? So it can be tricky, really, because, for example, if you want to do human rights, right, human rights advocacy, and that's your first option, and they say choose a second one, I don't know. You tell me, like, what else is in that arena? Because they don't have, LLM courses for constitutional law or administrative law. They have them as modules, and suppose that might be what saves the day, right? You can choose an LLM course that would allow you to take particular modules that would be included in the first option that you have. I hope I'm making sense, right? So always try have electives, or try have choices that are close to one another, so that if your first option fails, at least the second option, and this is obviously if you take LLM coursework with research report as opposed to research report, at least if you take this, at least with the second option, you are allowed to do modules that you would have done with your first choice, and so you would sort of be getting the same learning. It might differ with other modules, right? Cool. That's the first question. That really, you can get all that information on that particular institution's postgraduate website. Cool. Supervisors. How are supervisors allocated? Fine. So if you do an LLM, regardless whether it's research report or coursework plus research report, you will be allocated a supervisor for the portion of your research paper, the portion of your research report. And usually they allocate supervisors who are expert in the field that you would be covering. So if your topic relates to labor law, they'll probably get a lecturer or a supervisor who is an expert or who's knowledgeable in that area of law. It might be, though, however, that there are not enough supervisors to supervise students who've chosen a particular area of law, and so you might get another supervisor who's not necessarily an expert in that field, but they do have some sort of knowledge or experience. So, for example, if you're writing on a constitutional matter, you're definitely not going to get a supervisor who does banking. That's like very far apart. So they do try to allocate supervisors who are expert in that field of law that you will be covering in your research report. I can't say like who gets first preference, who gets first prize. So suffice to say that if you come up with a research topic quite quickly and you submit your research methodology and it gets approved at an early stage, and you're one of the first to be considered, you're likely to get the supervisor who's most fitting. Also, if you identify a supervisor that you particularly want, for example, myself, I wanted Cora Hookster, and I didn't get Cora Hookster for many reasons. I think for the first reason is that I was doing an LLM in labor, right? Although my topic covered constitutional and administrative law principles, it actually had nothing to do with labor. I actually don't even know how it got approved, but they approved it, and I was like, well, this is great. So I wanted Cora Hookster, but I sort of knew that I wasn't going to get Cora because my research report is not focused. In fact, my LLM is not under, her area of specialization. Also, by the time I was like, I want Cora Hookster, there were a lot of people who were like, they want Cora Hookster. So I don't know. It's obviously, I do think there's benefit in having relationships with particular supervisors. Maybe that relationship stemmed from your interactions during your undergrad, and that's also only if you do your LLM at the same institution that you did your undergrad. There are many things that go into it, but at the end of the day, even if you don't get the supervisor that you want, they will allocate a supervisor who is a specialist in the field you're covering in your research report. That makes sense, right? It does. The next question is how to choose a research topic. Look, remember that if you do, for example, if you do coursework and research report, let me talk about that because that's what I did, and I'm not really familiar with how research topics are chosen under LLM via research, purely via research, right? Research topics will always be related to, like I said, now, the LLM that you're studying. So if you're studying LLM in labor, they actually expect your research report to be something labor related. If you're studying human rights advocacy and litigation, they expect you to have a research topic within the constitutional administrative law framework. If you're studying LLM in banking and finance, then you must have a topic within that area of specialization. So here's the thing. If you're going to study an LLM, you must already at the back of your mind say, okay, I have an interest in banking, and at the back of your mind, you must already start thinking about a research topic in banking. That's period. Because you're not going to say, I want to study banking and finance, but then you're going to write a report on Section 197 of the Labor Relations Act. Do you understand what I'm saying? My point is that your research topic will always be related to the LLM course that you're studying. And the best way to go about it is to choose something that you're interested in. I think for me, it's always been so hard. I always sat down and thought to myself, how am I going to come up with a research topic that I have to write 10,000 words on? Where do I start? And mine was always to say, what am I interested in? What caught my attention recently? Whether it is a judgment, whether it's a new law that's been passed, regulations, whatever. What is it that caught my attention and what is it about that thing that caught my attention? For me, it's easier to focus on those things that grab my attention because it means even when I have to do the research, I already know where to start. I already know, okay, this thing was sparked by, my interest was sparked by this event, and now I need to research around this event, right? This is just coming up with a topic, but it's easier to do so when you are focusing on something that you like. So hard to come up with a research topic out of the blue, like from the sky. Like, it's hard, you know. So even before you say you're going to study your master's in a particular area of law, there must be things that are happening within that area of specialization that are grabbing your attention. And if not, start reading, you know, start looking for groundbreaking judgments or new bills or laws that are proposed to come into effect. And then from that, your mind might start running, and then a research topic might come about. Keeping in mind that that topic might be rejected, and then you must come up with another one. And that was my biggest fear. I studied LLM labor because I liked labor. I don't even know who told me I liked labor. I liked labor as an undergrad module. And then I thought, well, I don't want to do IP, and I wouldn't mind practicing employment, so let me do an LLM in labor. But I actually didn't know what was going on in that field. There was one Concord judgment that had been handed down, and I'm not going to go on and speak about that Concord judgment. I don't think it's necessary. But I remember when they said topics, that's the first judgment that came to my mind, because I was like, there's this Concord judgment, and I also wanted to go to the Concord at the time, and I was preparing my application, and so I wanted to write on that topic. Then when I started thinking about the methodology, I really hit a brick wall. And so I was like, but what else, right? And there's one thing that always interested me. And that was and this is why I think I should have studied LLM in human rights advocacy and litigation. At least I think so, because it's more in line with constitutional and administrative law. But there was always the Zuma 2017 or 2018 cabinet midnight reshuffle that always I was like, what the hell, right? And I know there were judgments on that, and I had recently read a Concord judgment where they said the matter was moot, and Justice Jafta, who I eventually clocked for, was like, no, this is why he thinks that thingy was wrong. And I was like, hey man, I got something that I think I want to write on. That's how it came about. So it's just easier to focus on something that you like. That's the point of how to go about research topics. So where you get the relevant sources, I suppose that's a question that I'm answering from a point where you've already chosen the topic and it's time to start doing your research. I mean, look, the university will usually take you through a tour of their library. At least that's what I remember during like the orientation phase. They take you through a tour of their library. They show you where to get, relevant information, where to access past research reports of students that have been stored in the library. They give you access to, your LexisNexis, all these database, all these online journal websites, Juta, Lexis. So all the resources are there. They make life easy for you. Yay, the one thing you will learn not to do in an LLM is use Google as I did it at the beginning. Like the first 2 assignments I did, I think it was human rights in the marketplace. The first 2 assignments there, I was just Googling answers. Then I realized that Google doesn't really, you can't do an LLM and an LLD, Google, like you can't. I mean, sometimes you might find something that's very useful, but Google's sources will be like 5%, 10% at max of, the sources that you quote in your research report. But you don't have to worry about that, because the institution should make all the resources that you need available to your disposal. So I'm going to deal with the last one, which is the relevance and importance of obtaining a master's. So I think that a master's is very helpful in giving you more knowledge and information on a particular area of law, because obviously you don't deal with it, whatever area you're covering, you're not dealing on an undergrad level, but you're dealing with it now on a more advanced level. For example, I chose administrative law, and that was an elective, right? Because I was doing labor law, and I mean, they do come together. There are modules that do work together very well. But I chose administrative law because it was one of the modules that I absolutely enjoyed during my LLB, even though a lot of people said it was hard, right? Now I'm doing advanced administrative law, and it helped me so much, right? And it came in handy when I started working at the Constitutional Court. Man, I was quoting cases like this. Thank you, Cora Hookster. I love that lady so much. Cora, I love Cora. But yeah, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it for many reasons. I was just like, oh my God, I'm so glad I did admin law. It helped me so much for my job at the time. So one of the relevance of studying a master's, and I know you can achieve this, you know, by doing a short course instead of an LLM, or a postgraduate diploma instead of an LLM. But one of the benefits of doing so is just the assistance it gives you in your day-to-day job, right, or role as an attorney, an advocate, whatever it is that you're doing. But also, I think it just places you a little bit higher in terms of your expertise and your knowledge when it comes to your counterparts, right? The people that you're competing with in the labor market, in the workforce, etc. The reason why I say this is that everyone has an LLB, right? To practice law, you need an LLB. So we all start off basically on the same level, right? You're not special. Once you obtain an LLB, you're not special for having an LLB, right? You might be special because you graduated with your LLB cum laude. You did very well. You work for a nice law firm, whatever you think makes you special. Then you have to start thinking about, how is it that I can set myself apart from everybody like me who has an LLB or BCom LLB or BA LLB, right? And that is where you start thinking, how can you enhance your level of knowledge in the legal field? How can you enhance your skill? And there are many ways to do so, and one of them is an LLM, right? And that qualification obviously is recognized. It is recognized by employers, it's recognized globally, you know, depending on, which jurisdiction we're talking about, because you can't practice with our legal qualifications in every country in the world. It depends. But it does help, and also the importance of it. It teaches you, the research aspect of an LLM teaches you very critical research skills. I can guarantee you now, and this is a fact, there are people who don't know how to conduct research effectively, efficiently, and produce proper work on time, just because they've never done an extensive research report and have never really gone into the very technical aspect of doing research. Everything is always surface level. That's why I say, for me, Google was just, you can get the information on Google and that's fine, right? But then I learned so many things at the Concord, obviously, because that's a law researcher position. I learned so many things from doing that type of research, and I learned so many, and that, for me, it wasn't as hard, because when I got to the Concord, yes, I was finalizing my LLM. It was my final year, but I had already learned certain things when it comes to that research aspect. Research will always be part of your day-to-day job as a lawyer. You're gonna get an issue where you don't know where to start, and then you have to research that topic. So research you can never run away from. So you are taught research skills. It's a fact, and it will assist you in one way or another. And especially if you work in a department where research is something that you do quite a lot. For example, I now work for in the public law department. I'm always researching, right? Certain things I don't have to research because it would be already something that I know. But then there are times where I don't know where to start, and then I have to start the research. And it might take me a whole day to do the research, but at least that report that I will produce is extensive, it's concise, and it contains the necessary information. And I can only say to you that the confidence to do research comes from, the research that I had to do in writing a research report in my LLM, and the research I was always doing at the Constitutional Court. So that is an important aspect of an LLM, and comes in very handy in your day-to-day work life. What else can I say about it? Again, I really think it's dependent on your circumstances, what you want, where you're going, what you want to achieve. There are people who want to be doctors, and they want to study their LLDs. I want to do my LLD, my doctorate. The only issue that I have now is coming up with a topic that is concise and makes sense, and it's probably going to be around public law, and I'm hoping to apply this year for next year, to commence next year. And so obviously people like me who want to further their studies, LLM is necessary. You can't do an LLD without an LLM. What else? But just look at your circumstances. Again, some of these things you don't have to do an LLM to achieve. You can do like a short course. For example, one thing that I need to improve on is my knowledge of procurement law. I don't have much knowledge on it, and so I am registering, or I have been accepted provisionally to do a short course in procurement law, and I think that will help me. At the end of the course, I would have achieved the purpose that I wanted to achieve. So what do you want out of an LLM? What do you want, out of whatever it is that you do? That's really what you need to think about. Don't do things because people are telling you to do it, because honestly it doesn't help. But another thing, like I said, LLM is hard, and people mustn't lie and say you can just sleep, wake up and get it over and done with. It requires time management. It requires effort, dedication, and really it requires you to really sit down and think about what it is that you are putting down on this research report. That's the research aspect. Research, obviously you just focus on research. If you do coursework, then you're going to be writing assessments, you're going to be writing exams, etc., etc. That stuff is not something you want to burden yourself with if you're just doing this thing for fun. So before you even endeavor to look at the options that you have at various institutions under their LLM courses, think about how is it going to assist you in your career? What do you want to achieve with it? And then you can go ahead and say, I'm going to do an LLM. I will end off by saying this. I always say that, especially to people who feel stuck in their careers, just study a master's. I say this a lot to UNISA students, and this is because of the notion that, UNISA students, the degree that they have doesn't match all the other institutions, and there's various reasons that have been preferred for that notion, and I'm not going to get into it because I really don't want to get into that particular thing, right? But let's say that that notion exists and it affects people negatively, right? What is it that they can do to sort of make life easy for themselves? And mine is to say, study an LLM, but don't study it at UNISA. Personally, I'm going to say don't study it at UNISA. In fact, I don't think anyone who studied at UNISA should study an LLM at UNISA, because it's going to be part-time anyway. So you will have time to do it after work or whatever. So go to another institution and apply and do it there, because perhaps that institution has better standing in the greater community or society. It's unfortunate that UNISA has that stigma. It is unfortunate, but perhaps we must be more progressive and look to solutions, as opposed to saying, but UNISA, hey, let's look to solutions. How can we then address this problem temporarily for students who feel stuck? And mine is to always say, study an LLM. At the end of it, you're going to have more knowledge. You're going to be a more attractive candidate because you've got that extra qualification, and you will have gained some sort of skill from that degree. So yeah, I hope I've covered enough on this topic. I hope it's helpful and will inform whether or not an LLM is something that you should be doing. Remember, you've got other options: short courses in a particular area of law, or a postgraduate diploma, which is not as hectic as an LLM. I think a postgraduate diploma, you don't do the research report, but I'll confirm and write it here. So yeah, bye guys.